So Keir Starmer just suffered a humiliating defeat in the House of Lords by 111 votes on a policy that Kemi Badenoch is championing, which means the Conservatives are currently winning the political argument on an issue that Labour probably should own. And the government's response to this crushing defeat is to announce a 3-month consultation, which is basically admitting they don't have a plan and need time to figure out what they're doing. That's not just a loss, that's a comprehensive political thrashing delivered by unelected peers while the government with a massive Commons majority watches helplessly. Welcome to UK Political Insight, where we watch Labour lose votes they should be winning and then respond with the political equivalent of, "We need more time to think about this." And today we're breaking down this Lord's defeat, why social media bans for under 16s have become a massive political issue, and whether Labour's consultation strategy is actually sensible governance or just kicking the can down the road while children's mental health deteriorates. Spoiler alert, when Conservative peers are making more compelling arguments about protecting children than a Labour government, something has gone seriously wrong with your political positioning. Right, let's start with the numbers, because they're genuinely shocking. 261 peers voted for the social media ban amendment, 150 against. That's a majority of 111. In parliamentary terms, that's not a narrow defeat. That's not, "we almost had them." That's getting absolutely battered. When you lose by over 100 votes in a chamber where your party has significant representation, you've either failed to make your case or you're defending an indefensible position. And this is particularly humiliating because the House of Lords is supposed to be the place where the government can usually manage things more easily than the Commons. Lords are less tribal, more willing to consider arguments on merit, generally more deferential to the elected government. If you're getting crushed by 111 votes in the Lords, you've lost the argument so comprehensively that even people inclined to support you think you're wrong. The amendment itself proposes adding a ban on social media for under 16s to the Children's Well-Being and Schools Bill. This means the issue will now have to be considered by MPs in the Commons through what's called the ping-pong process, where legislation bounces between the two chambers until they agree. So Labour MPs will have to vote on whether to support or reject this ban, putting them on the record either way. And here's where it gets politically toxic for Labour. Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader who's been struggling to make an impact and define what modern conservatism stands for, has seized on this issue and is championing the ban. She celebrated the Lord's vote as a huge win and challenged Starmer directly. Another U-turn, Keir? The country is demanding action, not more dither and delay. That "another U-turn" line is killer because it taps into the established narrative that Labour constantly U-turns on policy. Whether it's winter fuel payments, inheritance tax on farms, pub business rates, or any of the other issues we've covered, there's a pattern of Labour announcing things and then reversing course under pressure. Badenoch is framing the social media issue as the next U-turn waiting to happen, and given Labour's track record, it's a credible attack. Technology Secretary Liz Kendall announced the 3-month consultation this week following growing calls from campaigners and opposition MPs. Now, consultations are normal governance. You want to hear from experts, consider different viewpoints, make evidence-based policy. That's responsible government. But the timing makes this look like panic rather than planning. The consultation was announced right as the political pressure was building, which makes it seem like a delaying tactic rather than genuine desire for input. And Conservative peer Lord Nash absolutely called this out. He's a former schools minister, so he knows this area, and he said, "The government's consultation is, in my view, unnecessary, misconceived, and clearly a last-minute attempt to kick this can down the road." That's not subtle. That's direct accusation that Labour is stalling because they don't want to make a decision. Nash's speech to the Lords was actually pretty powerful, and it's worth quoting at length because it gets to the heart of why this is such a compelling issue. He said, "Many teenagers are spending long hours, 5, 6, 7 or more a day on social media. The evidence is now overwhelming as to the damage that this is causing. We have long passed the point of correlation or causation. There is now so much evidence from across the world that it's clear that by every measure, health, cognitive ability, educational attainment, crime, economic productivity, children are being harmed." 5, 6, 7 hours a day on social media? For teenagers, that's basically a part-time job's worth of screen time. And Nash is making the argument that this isn't just correlation, it's causation. We're not just observing that kids who spend lots of time on social media have worse mental health outcomes. We're saying social media is causing those worse outcomes. That's a much stronger claim, and if it's true, it demands action. Nash continued, "This is going to happen. The only question is when. We have the opportunity to do it now in this bill, and every day that passes, more damage is being done to children. We must act now." This is classic political rhetoric, creating urgency and moral clarity. Either you act now to protect children, or you're complicit in the harm being done to them. It's a framing that's very hard to argue against without looking like you don't care about children's well-being. And here's the political problem for labor. This should be their issue. The left is supposed to care about protecting vulnerable people from corporate exploitation. Social media companies are billion-dollar corporations that profit from keeping young people addicted to their platforms. This should be an easy progressive argument. Regulate big tech, protect children, prioritize well-being over corporate profits. It's literally in labor's political DNA. But instead, the conservatives are making this argument while labor dithers about consultations and evidence bases. Badenoch is positioning herself as the leader willing to take on tech companies to protect children. Nash is making passionate speeches about harm to young people, and labor is responding with, "We need to get this right, and we'll work with experts," which sounds sensible but feels weak. Baroness Smith of Malvern, the education minister responding for the government, said all the right things in procedural terms. She acknowledged concerns, promised action, noted there's a range of views that need considering. But compare her bureaucratic response to Nash's passionate call to action. One sounds like someone who cares deeply about children being harmed. The other sounds like someone reading from a briefing note about process and consultation. Smith said, "There is clearly a range of different views on the action that we need to take, even as there's a consensus that action is needed." That sentence structure alone, the hesitation, the acknowledgement of different views, shows the government hasn't figured out its position. They know something needs to be done, but don't know what, so they're hiding behind consultation and evidence gathering. And to be fair, there are legitimate questions about how a social media ban would work in practice. Do you verify ages through ID checks, raising privacy concerns? Do you rely on parental controls, which kids can easily circumvent? Do you ban all social media or just certain platforms? What about messaging apps? What about gaming platforms with social features? Implementation is genuinely complex. But complexity doesn't change the political dynamics. When you've got conservatives making straightforward arguments about protecting children and labor making complicated arguments about needing to consider all the factors and consult widely, labor loses politically, even if they're technically right about the complexity. Badenoch's framing is also politically savvy. She said, "Our approach isn't about party politics, but restoring common sense, helping parents protect their children, and fixing the flaws in the Online Safety Act." Common sense is a powerful political frame because it positions your opponents as overthinking things or being captive to special interests. Parents across Britain see their teenagers glued to phones for hours. They watch mental health deteriorate. They feel powerless because if they ban their own child from social media, that child is socially isolated from peers who are all on these platforms. A government ban levels the playing field. No parent is the bad guy because everyone's kids are affected equally. This is why the issue has such political potency. It's not abstract policy debate. It's about families struggling with real problems in real time. And when one party offers a clear solution while the other offers a consultation process, families know which one sounds like it's actually trying to help them. The reference to the Online Safety Act is also interesting because that was supposed to be the comprehensive solution to online harms. It was debated for years, passed with much fanfare, and was meant to make the internet safer, especially for children. If it needs fixing already, that suggests it wasn't fit for purpose, and Labor supported it at the time, so they can't easily distance themselves from its flaws. The ping-pong process that this will now go through is also politically fraught for Labor. The amendment comes back to the Commons. Labor MPs have to vote on it. If they reject it, they'll be accused of voting against protecting children from social media harms. If they accept it, they'll be admitting the Lords was right and the government was wrong. If they try to amend it with their own version after the consultation, they'll be accused of the U-turn Badenoch already predicted. There's no clean win here for Labour. They've been outmaneuvered politically, even if their substantive concerns about implementation are valid. And that's because they've let Conservatives seize the moral ground on an issue that should naturally favor the Progressive Party. The government spokesperson's response was pure defensive spin. We will take action to give children a healthier relationship with mobile phones and social media. It is important we get this right, which is why we've launched the consultation and we'll work with experts, parents, and young people to ensure we take the best approach based on evidence. Taking action, but first consulting. Getting it right, but needing experts. Based on evidence, but also listening to parents and young people. It's all very reasonable and responsible, but it lacks the political punch of we're banning social media for under 16s to protect our children. One is governance,